Yeah, I've started recording. Don't worry. Anyways, what we were discussing was the fact that anything that traveled through land was, I think, called tea, and anything that traveled to sea was called chai. No, the other way around. I'm not sure though. Anything that traveled by sea was tea, and anything apparently that
Hmm.
traveled through land was called chai. And then Americans started calling it chai tea. So that's there.
Americans are stupid, dude.
Yeah, Americans are quite
Americans are
stupid.
stupid.
I've just started realizing very recently. I was recording a podcast this morning. I was telling this to my other friends also that we truly have wasted so much time thinking that the world revolves around America that is not funny anymore. Imagine the amount of time I must have actually spent on a bunch of podcasts and a bunch of news channels which are American. And now I realize that that has no bearing on me. And those fuckers don't even know that we exist.
No, they
And
don't.
they don't. They're like, India, yeah, man, India. Like, well, what part of the world, man? And and this is true, right? This is not like some offhanded remark on them. They just have no clue about us.
They
Absolutely
don't have.
none. The British obviously know because obviously, like, you have to know the ones you stole from. But
No, but that is also true. That's also true. But the thing is, I think the British in general have a better awareness of the world.
except their
Of
own
course, they
colonial
rule
history.
pretty much. They pretty much rule the world.
Yeah,
Sun never set on the kingdom, so
yeah.
it's a problem.
But the Americans don't give a fuck. And I started realizing, right, like all the protests that are going on and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure you enjoy the pop culture and everything, and it's nice. It's very nice. It's great. Good luck to that. But why do you give a fuck about American social issues? I don't mean it like in a nasty way. What I'm just saying is, why would you want to care?
No, why would you? Why? Like that day, someone asked me something at work, like something about Democrats and Republicans, and I said, I don't know.
Yeah,
They were like, you
exactly.
should know.
Like why?
Why should I know?
Yeah,
What does it do to me? It does nothing. That system of democracy doesn't even exist in India, so I have no reason to even read about it. And yeah, there's some Antifa and all that is happening. What do I care? I don't care. It
dude,
has
their
nothing to
shit.
do with my
Yeah,
world.
nothing at all.
It has nothing to do
And
with my mother also was telling me that day, oh, your cousins are going through so much because the education is now suddenly this, is that. Your other cousins were there on some H1B visa that might get revoked. I was like, okay. She was like, you don't know all this, you should know, you should be aware of all this. I said, okay, I'm aware of a lot of other things. This has nothing to do with me.
yeah,
This has nothing to do with me. I'm not going for a PhD. I have never studied there. I don't have like I had friends I still don't give a shit. Like I have cousins that I don't give a shit.
yeah.
तू गया ना वहाँ पे? Who asked you to go there? Come back then. Like it's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there was, and it's only started coming to me like very recently as I grow up more and more, right? And I realize how fucked things are in this part of the world. And if you wanted to talk about the problems of, say, Malaysia, Indonesia, for that sake, and the guys who are closer in a small way to us, and then there's like
Hmm.
a lot to be found out over there as compared to like some like Seattle being overtaken by some like bunch of chutias. Who gives a fuck? Like,
Who gives a
and
fuck about Seattle? Like, who
yeah,
gives a fuck?
exactly.
Like, who gives a fuck if they're I don't know. Like, okay, black guys have been killed there. Okay, I mean, black guys have been killed everywhere. People are being killed everywhere. Okay, that's fine. But Black Lives Matter, I don't have to care about Black Lives Matter because I am not there in that society. There are no
Exactly.
black guys in our society. And of course, Black Lives
Hardly.
Matter. I'm not going
Yeah.
to say it doesn't matter, but I don't care about what's happening. I don't need to have a minute by minute update about what's happening.
Our celebrities were.
I don't even have a minute by minute update about what Sushant Singh Rajput's case is going on and what's happening with that case. What can I do with Black Lives Matter, bro? Matlab, a Bollywood star is murdered, okay, or whatever, is foul play, and I don't care about it in my backyard. Why would I care about some shit happening across the world? Some chutias don't even know about us.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
cares about us? Fuck
That's
all,
true.
man. But that's been the case since we were kids, huh? And it's still continuing, by the way. They're not letting go. America still holds that reign.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a book
It's
which very recently came out. Friend of mine was telling me about it. It's by Fatima Bhutto. She's a
huh.
Pakistani writer. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
she's one of the relatives of, I don't know what exactly her relation is to Benazir Bhutto, but
She was a niece, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, she's a niece.
But the book revolves
She was
around
promoting a book on Instagram.
yes.
That
So
book. Yeah?
yes. So it's about how slowly but surely the pop culture epicenter of the world is shifting from west to east, right? And the countries that she talks about are Pakistan, to an extent India, definitely India. I mean, Pakistan is going to be there, India definitely has to be there, and
That's what.
and Turkey and places like that. Like how some of these
Not
countries,
Korea, Japan.
I'm
Should you
pretty sure
mention
South Korea
Japan?
is like mad, right? South Korea is like
Yeah.
crazy. I mean,
K-pop, dude.
K-pop, yeah, K-pop has been
Like,
around. K-pop has been their like biggest pop culture export for the longest time.
yeah, but now California girls and all are now totally into it now. It's like mainstream.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
we
hip
are
hop.
back to discussing America again. Think about that.
See, that's what. Because that is what will give it the legit status, right? That we've taken something away from them, or we have entered their lives in some way. Imagine our biggest export right now in the last 10 years is Rajesh Kutrapalli from Big Bang.
Who's that guy? I don't know.
He's that Indian character on that show.
Ah, oh yeah. I
One of
know
the
that.
titular characters.
There are 4 guys in that show.
He's on. Yeah, he's on. Before him was Apu from The Simpsons.
In fact,
There's
I like
nothing else
Apu, man.
Indian.
I like Apu, though.
You know, Apu was played by Hank Azaria, right?
Who's that? I don't know that either.
Hank Azaria is that producer, writer, director from New York. He's also that weird researcher from Friends who goes to Minsk and comes and bangs Phoebe every couple of seasons
Got it.
with the specs. He's the
Yeah.
same guy. He plays multiple characters on the show. He lends voices to multiple characters. He was in Godzilla, though, the first Godzilla in 1998 when we were kids. He was the journalist guy with the fucking camera running
Fuck
around.
you, how do you remember this shit? I have no clue.
I don't know, man. Pop culture.
Yeah.
America's awesome.
I don't even remember the first Godzilla. I know, no, man. And that was the
Dude,
problem.
Matthew Broderick was in first Godzilla.
I don't even know.
And then the French guy from Pink Panther and
Steve Martin.
Leon. Yeah, Steve Martin ke saath. And Leon, the movie Leon with Natalie Portman as a 13-year-old. He's a hitman who protects the girl. You've not seen the French movie?
The only
What's
French
his name?
guy
Gustav
I
some
know.
shit. Okay, one second. I don't know if it's Gustav. Just because he's French doesn't mean he's Gustav. One second.
The only French guy I know is what's his face? Vincent Cassel.
He's
That dude
Belgian,
is-
right? He's good. I know. I'm messing with you. I don't know. His name is Jean Reno. Jean Reno.
Hey, John Reno, I know. He was also in Ronin. The very cool guy.
Yes.
Long nose.
Yes, very
Fuck.
cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, that weird hooked nose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Yeah, in Godzilla was pretty cool. I was like, oh wow, French generals can be really cool and stuff.
Oh,
I
he
was
played.
googling Vincent Cassel.
Vincent Cassel is
French.
French,
He's
right?
French.
Today
He's
is
not Belgian. No.
probably
French.
the best looking dude in the world, according to me. One of the best looking dudes.
I don't know why he looks Russian to me. He doesn't look French to me.
No, dude.
He opens his mouth. He looks so Russian. On this Wikipedia page, at least, in this pic, he's so Russian, dude.
It's probably the shaved hair, is it?
I don't know. It's just my name is Vincent Cassel. Yeah, totally. He's totally Russian. Well, I don't know what looking French means, but yeah, he looks Russian too. He was awesome in that Ocean's 12, man.
Oh yeah, that dude.
That scene
He
was
was the
iconic.
main dude. Yeah. When they're playing that really
That's
cool
the only
song.
good scene in the whole movie.
Yeah. That's the only good scene.
That's the only good thing in that movie.
Yeah, remember
That's
that soundtrack?
beautiful.
It's a beautiful soundtrack.
It's beautiful.
That movie
Soderbergh,
was
no?
shitty.
So slick.
Yeah.
So slick. The
That
soundtrack
movie
was
was-
so slick on all three movies.
Lava.
But 12th one was the weakest.
Oceans. Yeah, where they basically go to Europe and then they steal from this dude that golden egg. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Faberge's egg or something.
So I don't know if you remember, Rick and Morty did a whole episode sort of mocking that whole genre. I think it's something on double crossing, like how there is a convention of world's greatest heist artists, and Rick Sanchez goes in there and he sort of shits all over them. And the whole episode is constructed in a way where he's just like taking a shit on the Ocean series. Like even the background, even the soundtrack. It's like it's insane. It's like heist, double heist, and
double cross.
Yeah. And he basically
Triple
creates a robot who basically like is programmed to double cross it, and so it just goes into a place where like it just goes into a
It
crazy.
doesn't even matter.
It,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I was like half the episode. I was like, what the fuck is going on? But it's a mad episode. You gotta check that out, man. You haven't seen the new
I
season,
want to
have
check.
you?
No, man, I haven't caught up on Rick and Morty. I saw the first episode of the new season. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know. I have to check it out. Right now, I'm actually watching Raid Ornament.
What's that?
It's a drama on Prime. It's a Showtime series. It features Liev Schreiber. You know Liev Schreiber, the Sabretooth from Wolverine movie. Do you know? Do you know that guy? Naomi Watts' ex-husband, basically. See, I know so much about pop culture.
Yeah, man. Fuck. No.
So it's very interesting. His father in that show is John Voight, who is Angelina Jolie's father. It's an awesome series, actually. It's a really cool drama series. Since Breaking Bad, I haven't really been hooked onto something like Breaking Bad and True Detective, of course. I haven't been hooked onto
Season 1, you
something.
mean?
True Detective season 1, yeah. I haven't seen season 3 yet. I don't want to. I don't know why. I'll ease into it later on. But yeah, it's very, very cool. The
Season
show's very
1
cool.
was something.
Season 1 was something. Yeah.
Season was. I
You should check out his short story, man.
Who's?
On Postcards. It's on Grantha. You can check out the short story. His first short story that got selected when he was like 22 or something. It's a
Who?
very interesting story.
Who are you
Nico
talking
Pizzolatto, the writer of True
about?
Detective. Yeah. You should check it out. It's very interesting. It's available for free on Grantha. You can just check it out. Ghost Birds.
Oh,
दम था
so
आदमी में.
he's like okay, so he's like a proper
He's,
novelist
he's a
or
novelist. Yeah, he's a novelist. Then he started writing for TV shows when I think he came across some agent in Hollywood, and they were like, "Why don't you just write a show for us?" And believe it or not, in 6 months he wrote True Detective. Yeah,
that show fucking
crazy.
gave me the creepies, man.
Yeah,
And that like the one of the reasons why it gave me also that sort of creepies was because I mean like the location that they shot it in, na?
yeah.
That vast expanse of land, like the Louisiana land, right? That almost plays like like the antagonist of the show. The location
Yeah.
is the villain in a way, which
Yeah.
which which is essentially what like Anurag Kashyap also did so well in Gangs of Wasseypur. Like
Wasseypur, yeah.
like nothing is solved in Wasseypur, right? Like it's uh, like people are dying till the last scene, and like one of the things that eventually Faisal's, I think Faisal's wife, right? Huma Qureshi is Faisal's wife. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen it yet, then what the fuck are you doing? But she eventually, I think, migrates to another city, and I think
Yeah,
there's
she goes to Bombay.
yeah, she goes to Bombay,
I think it's
and
Kurla. They show Kurla in the ending
I
sequence.
don't know if this is
And
Kurla.
and, and that guy is still there, huh? That
Yeah,
guy is
exactly.
still
That's what I'm
there.
saying. So,
He's
so
the
the location by itself, and which is uh, which is such a actually a very dark way to end something, because that means unless you escape from the place by yourself,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
there is nothing solved, no matter how good a person, how bad a person you are, and makes you start thinking about all these crazy places where people are not able to escape from. Like if you are living in the say northwest frontier of Pakistan, for that sake, or if you're living in if you're living in one of those countries like Liberia and all in Africa, where the opportunities like there is no opportunity. First of all, you either sort of join hands with the people who are indulging in something which is that crazy, or you become a victim. And third is you sort of try to run away from there. And
Yeah.
that I think is so well captured in Vasupur and all these things, because the place by itself is a villain.
It's a character, right? It's always a
It's a
character.
character. It's a character.
Yeah, so it's all great works of art are always depend on the cities. Like you can't escape Bombay with Midnight Children. You can't escape Bombay with Salam Bombay. Even Dhobi Ghat, you can't escape Bombay, right? Gully Boy, you can't escape Bombay, for instance. But Louisiana is like one of those really creepy places, man, with the swamps and stuff. And like those pagan like rituals and shit like that, it just gets to
Yeah.
you after some time, and especially when children are involved, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very scary, bro. Scary, scary world. You know, another movie like Black Hawk Down. Have you seen Black Hawk Down?
In parts.
Well, there shit hits the fan like how, right? And that just tells you what Mogadishu is all about. At least Mogadishu in the 90s.
Isn't
So it's
Mogadishu
like,
still fucked?
it's still fucked, but those days in the 90s when that happened, the entire city turned on them, dude. Two choppers crashed in the middle of Mogadishu and warlords just got on their asses. It's crazy.
I
So
was
it's like one of
watching.
the greatest action movies I've seen in a long time, man. I don't think
It
anything
was
still tops it.
it was Tom Hardy's first movie, I think.
He was there in that. And a lot of big guys were there in that. A lot of big guys who went on to become big. At that time, they were still good actors only. I mean, but even this guy was there from Munich. What's his name? And
Eric
Troy,
Bana.
the Hector guy, Eric
Eric
Bana.
Bana.
Yeah, Eric
Fuck,
Bana
that
was
guy is
there.
a that
Eric
guy
Bana
is
was
a
good.
freaking gem, man. I love that guy.
He's and he plays such a badass in the movie. It's crazy. So
I've
yeah,
never probably gone around seeing the whole movie because
you should.
I was a kid, man, when it came
There
out.
is, it's like Mogadishu. It's just Mogadishu screams at you there. It's not the warlords and everything. It's actually the city itself. In fact, similarly, even there's another movie called The Lone Survivor with I think Matt Damon is there in it. Not Matt Damon. Sorry, what's his name? Mark Wahlberg.
Hmm.
It's actually a true story. Some Marines get caught up in the valleys of Afghanistan. A mission gets botched. The location gets found out, and within like an hour, those Pashtuns are on them in a mountain, and they're fucking their happiness. And what happens is ultimately this is one guy who's played by Mark Wahlberg's character, right? A true story. He somehow escapes through the mountains and he lands up in an Afghani village. And there, that village is sort of still fighting the Taliban. Okay, they have not accepted Taliban as their whatever, their religious moral leaders and all that. They still abide by their 2,000-year-old code called Pashtuni, where it is your moral obligation to actually help a stranger out if they are in deep trouble. The entire village comes together and saves this man and fights the Taliban immediately afterwards. It's crazy until of course reinforcements come and pick up this guy and he's free. That's why he's called the lone survivor. So there again, things hit like shit hits the fan in minutes, okay? Because the Pashtuns are pretty badass. Talibani guys are pretty badass in the mountains, right? And the Marines are like super like hardcore and they're so well trained. They can't believe that those guys actually ran up the mountain in like an hour and they've already surrounded them. And they're just looking in this sheer panic. And then Mark Wahlberg's character says, listen, don't worry, it's just Afghanistan. So
I was reading about
location,
this bunch of people the other day because you said these guys like having like a lot of people haven't sort of accepted Taliban, right? Still, and I mean there was a time that the Talibanis sort of got into Pakistan also, and so Pakistanis
yeah, yeah.
in the northwest and I think around the Afghani border regions,
SWAT Valley, the
yeah,
SWAT Valley, and
yeah,
yeah,
they started forming their own local militia to sort of protect themselves and their own
yeah, yeah,
colonies
yeah, correct,
against the Talibanis. They were like, we're
yeah.
not going to give in to these motherfuckers.
They
So,
were,
and they've got the Kalaka
actually,
shows and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They were like they were sort of funded by multiple governments whichever came and went, but they didn't accept the Taliban's rule. They didn't accept the code of the student, right? They didn't accept it. In fact, there was this what's his name, Shah Massoud or something. I don't know. He's called the Lion of Panjshir. In the 90s, he was the only guy to stand up to Taliban, and he was funded by the US for the longest time. But eventually, he was assassinated. Shere Panjshir is what his name is. I'm just searching this guy out. He was
Shere.
another Shere Panjshir. Panjshir. Ahmad Shah Massoud. So he was an Afghan politician and military commander.
Was he
So he
from
was
the Northern Alliance? Was he one of
he
those
was
guys?
I think he was part of the Northern Alliance. Something like that, yeah. So in the 90s, he was the only guy who was actually fighting. So he fought the Russians, then he fought the Taliban also immediately afterwards. He didn't accept that the Taliban
Should
had
replace
any
the,
right over the land.
yeah.
Yeah. So he believed they had no right. So he was funded by the US for the longest time. Ultimately, he was assassinated. So
See, that's the thing, right? Like a lot of these places, the only way out sometimes is assassination. And or you either fight, you get assassinated, and you
We
look
live
at,
by the spot.
and which is what I find really crazy about a lot of these places. And obviously you feel grateful, right? I mean, you're living in places like Bombay and Bangalore and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, at least nobody's coming to, like, not every day anybody's sort of coming out here with
Yeah,
guns.
you don't have to worry at all when you step out of the
Yeah,
house. I mean, you don't have to worry about like these kind of things. Like
precisely. But
this,
these
this is
places are
crazy.
a lot more in the world than we sort of care to believe more often than not.
They're in India also, right? I mean, I'm sure there are so many badlands in India we don't know about.
For sure, for sure. I
I
would start
mean,
with
Bihar,
Kashmir.
UP will have so many corridors.
I would start
Kashmir,
with Kashmir, man. I mean, yeah, like you don't know what the fuck is coming to you.
what about the Red
Like,
Forest, Central India, Jharkhand side, Chhattisgarh,
oh fuck,
all
true.
the way
You
down
you
till Gadchiroli.
you're doomed if you're with the government, and you're more doomed if you're with the Naxals, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you're screwed. You're screwed. Those are bad lands, man. Things can go wrong. Like this. I don't know if it's improved now. We don't hear many reports, right? But I'm sure like violence is there in India everywhere. Outside the metro, they're still not safe. I don't think it's that safe. I think we overplay safety that way. I think to some extent.
I
Like,
was
can you imagine you have like a pot of gold and a wallet, and you were asked to make a road trip through the entire breadth of Uttar Pradesh, okay, into
not gonna.
Bihar, then bypass Calcutta. You think that's your last refuge? No, you are asked to bypass Calcutta, go through rural Bengal, and somehow reach something like, I don't know, some Jorhat or something in Assam.
So I don't know. I don't have any stories about Bengal, and none of my relatives live there. But Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, I know at least two or three people in my extended my father's friend circle and my our family who got just mugged on the street. So in Uttar Pradesh, not in Uttar Pradesh, in South Uttar Pradesh, just on the Madhya Pradesh border, there is this caste slash tribe, whatever you want to call it, like a group of people or like sort of bandits who are called Kabutre. And I think I've told you about this before.
Kabutre.
Kabutre basically are bandits. Okay, and what they do is they essentially will take your stuff, and this is real. This is for real because this is something I know which has happened firsthand to people I know. But they'll beat you up, and even if you say take my wallet and take my money and all that stuff and beat you, they're like हम मेहनत की खाते हैं. So like the code is to eventually beat you up because unless they do it, they've not earned it. And then they put a lot of oil on their body so you cannot catch them because there's a bunch of people, and they've been around in the areas like Jhansi and Orcha for the longest time. And obviously Jhansi and
Jhansi and which place?
Orcha, have you heard of Orcha?
No,
Orcha,
no.
Orcha, Orcha.
Where is it? In Uttar
Orcha,
Pradesh only.
Madhya Pradesh, North Madhya
It's in
Pradesh.
Madhya Pradesh.
Yeah. I have a story about how
Okay.
once I almost drowned in the Orcha river when I was really young, but that's for later.
Acha.
But Orcha is a historic town. Uh,
Acha.
yeah. It basically had its own kingdom. And the interesting bit about Orcha is, from what I've heard, is when Chandrasekhar Azad was like when the British were after him, he sort of was there in hiding for a long time, and he sort of hid under the garb of a sannyasi or something, if I'm not mistaken. I actually have to look
Oh.
that story up, but it's pretty legendary for Chandrasekhar Azad. And so yeah, what I was saying was Orcha, Jhansi, and then obviously like the extended parts of Chambal, because that's not very far from Chambal. Because even if you're
Hmm.
going from Bombay to Jhansi, by the time you're closing in on Jhansi, you start seeing a lot of Chambal around it. So these people exist over there, and they will come after you. They'll kill you if need be, that's what the situation demands. But at least the least they can do is beat you up. There are crazy incidents, man, that have happened in that area. So Uttar Pradesh by itself is like a bit of a it's crazy. I know this. I mean, I've literally seen some local goons, and that's because I keep going to Uttar Pradesh all the time because I have family over there, like a lot of family over there, pretty much everywhere in Uttar Pradesh. I've seen local goons, not goons, they just, yeah, whatever you want to call it, mafia goons, whatever, running running their own tolls. You have to pay them tax to go from one part of the city to another. So that sort of stuff exists. So obviously, like you cannot take a pot of gold and some cash with you and go from Uttar Pradesh to Bihar to
Yeah, very.
and Bengal is like a
I,
freaking travesty in itself, I think.
Bengal, actually, the thing is, it's just gundas from what I've heard in rural Bengal. I don't know. I've just heard stories. When I was in Calcutta, just a maid used to talk about how dangerous it is really in rural Bengal. It's not that green and hunky dory there. It's very interesting that you told me about Kabutre, because is it like a Thuggy? Is it like a Thuggy? Is it similar to Thuggy culture? Because
Thuggees,
Thuggees are like morally, not morally, but their society binds them to actually kill, right? Strangle.
I don't know. I've been reading a book.
So
I've just started reading a book about Thuggy because I wanted to write a bit about them. But last I checked was like the whole system as itself was outlawed, and like the British went after Thuggees, after the thugs or Thuggees for a long time, like to sort of eliminate them. But what happened to the whole culture? And maybe we can just take it up tomorrow also if we want to. But what happened to the culture is something not many people know. A lot of them went into hiding. A lot of them sort of gave up the profession by itself, but there was a cult, definitely. Like they
there was
followed
a
like a
cult, yeah,
particular set of gods, and they had their own
yeah.
goddess. I'll look up the name of the goddess,
Was
obviously.
Kali. Was Kali.
Are you sure?
Was it was Kali. It was Kali, and there was something about the blood of Kali, and has a tongue involved in this. It's a cult. It's a proper tantric kind of a cult. And interestingly, it also has some kind of an Islamic bent to it. Also, there are Islamic practitioners also
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah,
are
yeah,
part of
yeah,
the Thuggees.
absolutely. So
And
Thuggees,
I was actually reading about Phansikars in the south. So similar to what you are saying about Kabutre, but the Phansikars, actually, I'm not calling it right. It's not Phansikar. It's, I think, Phansikar.
okay,
Okay, because their modus operandi is basically they send these kids and people you don't really consider dangerous into towns, and they used to ask around those days, in the 18th century, they used to ask around which wealthy guy is on the road, like who has his caravan or whatever, who's on the road, and what is he packing, basically how much gold and stuff is he packing. And then the information would travel quickly, and then they would actually be waiting on the road. They will be on horseback. These guys come along, then they just ambush the party, and they tie up their legs, they tie up their hands like that, they bind them, I think, like how the modern day out people apprehend outlaws, right, on the road. um, the police guys, hands behind, and they even bind their legs together, and I think they gag them. Then they torture them, I think, or they beat them up, one of the two, and then they strangle them eventually. They have to strangle them and kill them.
there's
They
a
have to
code.
strangle the party.
Yeah.
It's like a weird code. That's why the name Phansikars.
Oh,
So the British called them Phansikars because of this. But there was a cult, and they were actually connected to the Thuggees. So basically, Thuggees from the south were called Phansikars, and they were active in Mysore. They were active in Andhra Pradesh, and I think all the way up till Srikakulam, which is almost bordering Orissa. So it's similar to the Kabutre, similar to that, but I think they had a slightly different code. Beating up to 100%, but used to definitely they had to strangle them, and they would strangle them also with like rope and stuff like that. They had their own implements for it. So it's a very interesting culture. The outlaw culture is very very
yeah,
interesting.
it's fucked up. It's
It's
crazy. It's
it's,
crazy.
it's really fucked up. It's really fucked up. So that's the thing, right? I mean, in the West again, in America, which has sort of, I don't know, use sex and violence to such a degree that they have captured our imagination as far as pop culture is concerned. But that's all pop culture is right now in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
It's sex and violence in some form. I don't know, like in the East, I think it's in the Eastern Hemisphere, it's far more. I think it's far more violent than people actually portray it to be. I think we are a far more violent race just because we were subjugated, I think, in a way by the West. But I don't think people give the Eastern Hemisphere that much credit in terms of
For being
violence or the
violent.
capability of violence in the culture. Yeah. I mean, think about it, dude. I mean, the most peaceful religion in the world probably is Buddhism, right? But the most number of human right violations have actually happened in de facto Buddhist countries.
Have they though? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
Burma, Thailand.
I'm sure. I mean,
You
I
can
know the places you're referring to, but have they, like, if you were to say that
Sri Lanka,
Sri Lanka is a crazy one, yeah, but Sri Lanka is Sinhalese is essentially
Hinayana Buddhism.
more of, yeah. But I think you can be Sinhalese without being a Buddhist, I think.
Yes, it was. They obviously colored it as an ethnic war. It
Yes.
wasn't really a
Yeah.
religious war.
Yeah.
Uh, but the capacity for violence, it's been on display since the start of the 19th century in the East.
Well, but the thing
China,
is,
you have Japan, you have Korea right now. It's the cultures. I mean, we have violent cultures. That's my point. We have violent cultures in the Eastern Hemisphere. And I'm not even including the Pacific Islands. I'm not even including that culture. So
they're not.
it's
Yeah.
not all the West. It's not all America. I mean, just because someone packing a gun, that same gun means horse shit in Afghanistan. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
attitude is the
Yeah,
ghetto
yeah.
attitude doesn't work in Afghanistan for sure.
There's a great song about it.
Yeah, Kenan. Yeah,
This is
that's
Africa.
what it's so beautifully. Yeah, this is Africa.
I'll
This
take all
is
the rappers on a field trip.
any day.
Any-
They never been opposite real clip anyway. I love that. It's so iconic, man. That song. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, for instance, in India, no one really talks about violence as much, right? Thanks to Gandhi. But these cultures exist, and there are plenty of other cultures, plenty of other tantric cultures, I'm sure, that no one really talks about as much. And India was a dangerous place, even during Gandhi's time. People don't know about it. That's what I
yeah, for
feel.
sure, for sure. I'm going back to Thuggy, right? Like a Thuggy. Again, that system. Although I know what you're saying when you say things like we've been a violent culture for a long time. Thuggy by itself apparently is like a more recent invention.
Hmm.
In the sense, when I say recent, means like not more than 700 or 800 years old. They
No,
weren't. They were not around.
16th century or something,
Yeah,
right? The 17th
I
century or
think.
something is started.
Yeah, or
But
maybe like
we don't know.
slight.
It's documented then. It's been documented since
Okay.
then.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
We don't know
Hmm.
how long it's been going on. And if you're referring like cults of Kali and stuff, we don't know how long. Puranas itself are like, by definition, it means old. We don't know how
Yeah,
long they've been
Purana.
around.
Yeah.
Purana is literally that, right? So we don't know. We don't know that. It's just been documented. And the problem was in these times, the documentation was primarily carried out by Western, uh, I don't know, cultural anthropologists and stuff like that, right?
The
They used to have
index
this
studies people. Yeah.
index study. Yeah, they lay the groundwork for index studies. They were like basically just this is a hidden culture we don't know
Yeah.
about.
Looking at it from the
Let's
lens of yeah,
the monocle.
yeah, yeah, man. I mean, those guys were yeah, they were looking at things like in a very Western way, right? Like uh,
Very
this is
Western.
this, this is that. Like and but when you come over here, you all you see is like a big khichdi of things. Like
Yeah,
yeah, like one moment you're killing, next moment you're praying, and I mean, killing and praying usually happens in every culture uh, all the time.
yeah,
But I mean, apart from that, also there are many crazy things that that were happening in this part of the world, which were just yeah, which were just not documented. And because you said Buddhists and like how even they've been violent, and I thought you were going to mention Bodhidharma, and I was like almost hoping that somebody who sort of like who well he wasn't a violent guy, but he channelized what violence could do back in
yeah.
the day, and yeah,
He was a reaction to violence in culture, right?
yeah.
Because he developed a system because there was violence, and he developed it as a self-defense. So the martial arts, most martial arts are actually reactions to violence in any way. So the minute someone threw a punch and realized how devastating it can be, one guy.
Talk a bit more about Bodhidharma, because I think a lot of people who might be listening to us might not really
It is,
yeah.
yeah. There's this amazing YouTube channel I found. Okay, it's called Karate TV, and there's a dude who runs it, and it's brilliant. So he has a lot of insight into Kalari. So Bodhidharma was basically a saint from Kerala. Okay, I think he was a Buddhist saint from Kerala. He basically traveled up north. He was an emissary of sorts. So he carried with him this ancient system of martial arts and defense called the Kalari Payattu, which is at least literature says was a system developed by Parshurama himself. Now, Parshurama is someone who's like a de facto godfather of Kerala. Okay, almost everything in some way or the other is connected to Vishnu's identity. I mean, the avatar with the axe, right? So, and Parshurama was extremely adept at warfare. He was one Brahmin guy who lost his shit on Kshatriyas. And Kalaripayattu is basically something that he developed, and it was taken up. It was taken up by Bodhidharma in many ways. Of course, it amalgamated many systems, even from texts, that were mentioned in the Mahabharata and stuff, which is crazy. Malayuddha text and stuff. There is a lot of literature that has gone into Kalaripayattu. And this guy, what's his name, Bodhidharma, he went up north, and he came across the Shaolin monks in China. Now, those days in those mountain passes, and this is just a story, okay? There are multiple versions of this, but basically, these monks were who were meditating in these forlorn passes. There's no security for them that the state could provide at the time. The state being the monarch, right? And there were a lot of bandits along the way, and they used to apparently loot these monks and leave the monasteries dry. Okay, so when Bodhidharma came across these monks, so along with Buddhist tenets and principles, he also apparently handed over certain basic doctrines of Kalaripayattu, the system, and that over time was adapted by the monks. And it's what we have. What we have now is the modern Shaolin Kung Fu version of Kalaripayattu.
He went all
So
the
there are
way
a lot
up
of
to,
things.
he went
All the way up to, yeah. Those days people traveled like shit, dude. It was on foot. It's crazy to think of. I mean, like Adi Shankaracharya also went all the way from the south. He circumvented the entire Indian border, right? Northeast, west. Eventually, he died. He passed away at 32 because travel caught up with him. But Bodhidharma also, he went all the way up north, and he taught them. So when you actually compare the systems of Shaolin, Kung Fu, and Kalaripayattu, there are a lot of similarities, especially when it comes to the animal stances, so to speak, the animal styles. So even they have their version of the cat or the tiger or the leopard. They also have their version of the eagle. So there are a lot of similarities between the systems. They also have their version of star fighting, which is also something that I believe went to Sri Lanka and became Silambam. I think it's called the art of star fighting with sticks, basically. So yeah, I mean, Buddhists in a way always react to violence because it is not something that is. I mean, Buddha doesn't say reaction to violence is a bad thing per se, especially if it falls under the ambit of protecting people near you, protecting your community. Then you actually earn good karma for indulging in violence.
Is that so?
So
Sure.
it's a very gray area when it comes to like yin and yang or black and white kind of moral codes. But karma, the Buddhist view of karma is very different. Upliftment of society, the greater good of the community is also a form of compassion, and violence can be a vehicle. Of course, there are a lot of people who will negate this, but history plays itself out. Yeah, it's always like that. It's a little difficult to.
It's difficult to
It's very
digest.
similar to. It's a little difficult to digest. Yes, I mean that is one stance that one can take philosophically, and one can actually probably argue within the Buddhist system, especially of Mahayana. It's a possibility. It's something very eerily similar to Arjuna's problem, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, he's goaded to take up violence just to preserve his karma and to do his duty, right?
Tell me something though.
It's weird.
It's obviously weird. It's also interesting because you said that. Because if you were to protect your society, right, in say Buddhism, and you were to take up violence for it, what it implies for somebody like me, who's like who doesn't know too much about it. Obviously, I'm like a bit of a knucklehead about these kind of things. So what it implies to me is the fact that you're attached to your society. That's why you're trying to protect it. And that attachment is something that Buddha's, one of his main tenets is like that leads to suffering. Aren't you sort of going into some sort of a logical cycle?
See, the thing is, let me try and explain it to you. Okay, I'll try and articulate whatever I'm not an expert, but from whatever I've read, I'll tell you. Now, I'm referring to the thought process of the Mahayana sect of Buddhism.
Okay.
Okay, it's called the Greater Vehicle Buddhism.
Okay.
So in that Mahayana, yeah, exactly.
So
Mahayana. So there are basically three large schools of Buddhism, larger schools of Buddhism, the old classical way. I'm not accounting for Chinese and Japanese versions. Because they're also sort of I don't know, versions of these three schools itself, but they're mixed with the local syncretic religions. Okay. But one is Mahayana, the other one is Hinayana, and the third one is Vajrayana, Vajrayana is basically a subsect of Mahayana only. It's sort of it's a slight shift in the attitude towards the path to liberation. Okay,
What is
that's basically
Theravada
what it
then?
is. Theravada is actually a branch of Hinayana only.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what. So in the Theravada or the Hinayana route, I think what is basically prescribed is you need to free yourself of complete attachment. Okay, which means that you need to isolate yourself in entirety in order to achieve what is called the arhathood. Okay, arhathood is a sense of it's an enlightened space for any human being to achieve. Okay, it's a metaphysical state. They don't. I think they don't believe that they believe that there was only one and one Buddha. After that, there were only arhats. Okay, there were only bodhis and arhats, and there's no Buddha after that. There's only one. There can be only one Buddha. As opposed to that, the Mahayana sect, what they believe is there can be multiple Buddhas. Anyone can become Buddha. And for them, it is not important to isolate and take the so-called Shramana tradition to an extent where you have to completely negate the world and just sort of detach yourself completely from the world. You don't have to go through starvation. You don't have to go through rejection of pleasures of the world, because what Buddha believed also apparently, and this is part of the Madhyamaka tradition, which is the middle path, in that he realized that in order to for spiritual training, mind and body is very important and nourishment is very important. So he didn't believe like you could be a Jaini and avoid food and nutrition and just starve yourself, and that is the only way to attain salvation. That's not what he believed. So as a part of the middle path, what he prescribed was you your sense of enlightenment comes from others. Okay, they can be your vehicle to salvation. So if you have enough compassion for people around you and for your community, ensure that you negate their sufferings also through your teachings. Okay, and they sort of come on to your path, the path of true Buddhahood, then you achieve true nirvana. So in a way, the Buddha was actually calling for communal upliftment. Not just one person runs away to the mountains and no, he needs to be there. He needs to be part of daily social life. He needs to strive to ensure that everyone sort of eliminates suffering from their lives. Only then can true Buddhahood be achieved. And that's why Mahayana tradition also believes that there can be multiple Buddhas. And the minute you start striving for communal upliftment, as far as spiritual training is concerned, you're already a bodhi. You're on the path of enlightenment. So in a way, if you can protect community, because there are many what do you say, stimuli for suffering, right? One of them is violence.
Yeah.
So if you actually sort of I don't know, if you were to say that there is actually a war on your dharma, and it is as per your dharma's precepts that you have to stand up now and fight, and you have to take to violence in order to protect for the greater good. That's one argument for violence in Buddhism. And that's one argument for violence even in the Vedanta tradition in a way, which is what is there in the Bhagavad Gita. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and it's extremely complex. I haven't done even 1% justice to the complexity of Buddhism. It's very complex. It's crazy. I'm not even touched Vajrayana, which is a different. It's a different level. Vajrayana is slightly different because it's tantric, so it's all about. So the Mahayana tradition is about the means to an end, right? Where you take everyone along, sort of, so to speak, community and everything. And Vajrayana is all about the end. So you start with the end. In Mahayana, you start with the means, but in Vajrayana, you start with the end. So in Vajrayana, in many ways, no stimuli to pleasure, no stimuli to any kind of attachment is bad, as long as your mind is already set on the result. So it's a little subtle. The metaphysical cues are slightly subtle. The starting points are slightly different, but they also believe similar things to what the Mahayana tradition talks about. There can be multiple Buddhas, communal uplifting, and stuff like that. So this is just an interpretation. I'm just saying it's an interpretation, but it's very interesting. If people are interested, I mean, they can just type out on Wikipedia.
It's exploding my mind, like in a way.
There is an entire Wikipedia page, Buddhism and Violence. It doesn't talk about like it being justified. Okay, there's a difference. It's not. No one will talk about it being justified in a way. But I'm willing to bet.
Yeah,
but I'm willing to bet that the Buddha, when shit really hits the fan and he sees no way out, he would believe that it is in his karma to go to violence. I think that would be a very plausible situation. It's antithetical to what people generally believe, right? Perceive about Buddhism. But even people largely believe in Hindus are very peaceful. But when you actually scratch the surface and you go deeper into the belly of Hinduism and the philosophies, it's scary. Because karma is not about good and evil. It's not that simple. Karma is not about good and evil. You can incur good karma by harming people, and that's very, very weird. And that's why there are so many stories of demons being harmed in Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism. Demons being slaughtered all the time by gods. But that is how they attain purification in their lives. So yeah.
That's what the story of Bhagavad Gita is also, like, in a way he's coaxing. Yeah. He's being coaxed to go ahead and
he's being coaxed. Yeah.
To kill.
He's being coaxed to kill. The thing is, you can't understand that dharmic aspect, right? You can't understand without choosing really extreme situations and circumstances. As an example, you have to put a very extreme circumstance or a situation to make you understand the concept at play of dharma and karma. And there's nothing more extreme than going to war against your own bloodline, and being faced with the possibility of, or being faced with the task of vanquishing your entire bloodline, or at least a major part of your bloodline.
Yeah.
Nothing gets worse than that. If you turn on your family, that's the worst thing anyone can be asked to do. And in that extreme situation, Krishna actually makes him understand like what it means to actually do your duty, what you are made to do on this earth. Strive for the greater good and stuff like that. That's basically what it is.
It's pretty mad. I don't even feel like changing the subject right now. That's pretty intense shit, man.
Yeah, man. It's violence. I mean, I think we can learn a lot about ourselves from violence. It's very, very strange. Our capacity for it, the way we run away from it in today's modern culture, where we are sitting comfortably in our homes. But it's a very real part of us, and it's been encoded over so many centuries of, millennia of evolution, right? It's not something that will go away. That's why it surfaces, like it rears its ugly head through films, through movies, through art. It continues to do so. Even Ray Donovan is one of the oldest stories ever told about a man seeking salvation and trying to protect his family, and he indulges in violence to do so. He has no choice but to do so. So it's even Christ had to go through violence to prove a point. He had to sacrifice himself. He had to become the sacrificial lamb of God, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of the cross. So he had to bear his own cross, and he had to have violence. He accepted crucifixion. He had to have violence inflicted on his body so that people would actually understand what he's talking about. Scary. Everything comes from violence. It's the most extreme example, right? And in that extreme example, if light can shine through, then you have like a certain philosophy that can probably be a path to salvation for spiritual seekers. It's a very scary thought. So in a way, when we are running away from violence in modern culture, we're probably running away from spiritual salvation.
Yeah.
In a very weird sense. I don't know. That's just an idea.
I don't think this podcast will blow up, but if it blows up, then we are in trouble, right?
No, man.
We're already in trouble. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we are in trouble. The best part about the Eastern traditions of thought, right? They're always open to debate, and they're open to discourse, and they're more than willing for multiple counterpoints. So I don't think there's anything to be worried about.
That's because the canon is not defined, right? Usually.
No, it is defined, but the thing is, I haven't read enough. I don't know, actually. It may be defined in Buddhism, because there are so many sutras, there are so many. When you actually scratch the surface, it's amazing how something like Buddhism came out of India, and we have no strain of Buddhism alive today. No strain of Buddhism. The profound effects of this thought process, this one man who came from Lumbini in Nepal, present in Nepal, and he sat under a tree in Bodh Gaya, Bihar, which was a shithole until now. I don't know how it is right now. And Nalanda is up in ruins. I mean, this guy, he came up with this insane philosophy that sort of just morphed into this world religion in the most peaceful way, as I mean,
As
relatively
far as
peaceful ways.
of course, as far
Relatively
as
peaceful ways.
religions
Relatively,
go.
even Genghis Khan, in many ways, bowed down to a lot of saints. Though his armies went and murdered and plundered tons of monasteries in Tibet, but ultimately he was also looking for a spiritual leader from Buddhism. That just tells you, like, I mean,
Was he?
it's just crazy. Yeah,
Fuck,
yeah.
dude, you're like telling me things I did not know.
It's crazy. His son also was like, so it's not like they didn't plunder and rape and pillage even Buddhists, very peaceful Shangri-Las in Tibet those days. But it's crazy. Like, you have India here, you had Buddhism in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, man. You had Gilgit-Baltistan, where Buddhism was a major religion up until the 12th or 13th century before Islam came and converted. Majority of people actually opted to convert. That's a different story. But the fact that it was so widespread so quickly, and people say Christianity is one of the greatest missionary religions of the world, right? No one really talks about Buddhism as far as missionary
And
religions
it did
go. I mean,
not require that sort of effort to go around.
it did not. It did not require an evangelical effort.
Yeah.
Where you actually go and you basically cow down populations with socioeconomic sort of constraints. You know what I mean? It was plainly spiritual. It was plainly debate oriented, discourse oriented from a relatively large point of view. I mean, that's what I trying to come at. So there was this lady on not was she a lady? I don't know. Basically, a person who follows our page on Instagram who was talking about missionary work, right? And for some reason, she was only alluding to missionary work from a Christian point of view. And I told her, listen, what makes you think that there's no missionary work for any great world religion, organized or quasi-organized world religions in the world? Hinduism had their missionaries, Buddhism had their missionaries, and Buddhism missionary work was so great it basically took over Central Asia, took over Mongolia, man. So it's that tremendous expanse. No, there was no telling. I mean, it could have probably, if things hadn't changed the way it did through the course of history, it would have even invaded the Pacific Islands. I don't know. It's possible.
That would be crazy. Imagine like
That would have
going
been
to
crazy.
Polynesia and having like a
Yeah.
big Buddha statue over there. Like,
And another amazing culture of violence in the Polynesian lands, Polynesia, Melanesia, Hawaii. Those cultures are bad motherfuckers. They are pretty bad people.
they've got a they've got a difficult life, and I mean,
Yeah,
I was
cannibalism and
cannibalism was
like,
coming.
and just they're so. I think in New Zealand the Maoris, the whites had to actually basically broker a treaty or something with them just to get their services in the war, because they realized these guys were bad people, man. They were super awesome at war. But it would be interesting if Buddhism went there. I don't know how they would have reacted to that.
What's
Very
to
very
say?
interesting.
Yeah, what's to say it cannot go now? I don't know. But now it'd be like for different reasons. I don't know if it goes there
I
now.
don't see it going now. I don't see it going now because now what has happened in this age of awareness, they are actually celebrating their pagan, natural
Hmm.
pagan kind of a faith, and war and everything is very much part of the culture. And they celebrate it. They celebrate it through rituals and ceremonies. They don't really actually go to war, but violence is still in their blood. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm just.
I mean, sorry, just one more thing. I mean, in Tibet, before Buddhism actually took hold, right? There was a religion called Bon, or I think it was called Bonpa something. Okay, in Tibetan. It was a pagan, shamanistic kind of religion with a lot of animal sacrifice and stuff involved. Very lot of scary stuff. And eventually, in
When
Tibetan,
you
the
say a
Vajrayana
lot
form of
of animal sacrifice, you mean yak sacrifice?
yaks, and there's a certain wild mountain goat called Sero, I think, or it's an antelope. I'm not sure if it's. I don't know if there's a difference. But it's called a Sero. So they used to basically sacrifice these. This would be called the red offerings. It's called the red offerings.
Could you
That's
be
when,
more graphic?
yeah, that's where that the village head is like he means business. So stuff like that. And now the Vajrayana form of Buddhism is actually it takes up there are a lot of parallel rituals between the old born and Vajrayana Buddhism. There's hardly any difference in rituals. So
Except the
that
killing,
Buddhism has
maybe.
taken a different form. The killing has stopped. So to a large extent, the killing had stopped because of a fantastic Buddhist monk called Padmasambhava, who was born in, I think, somewhere near present day Swat Valley, I think, or Chakdara. I don't know where Chakdara is in Pakistan. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You lost current,
Yeah,
is it?
the transformer just burst or some shit happened, man. It was like a big boom behind me. So yeah.
Crazy shit.
No, I was actually telling you about a Buddhist monk who came from
Yeah, the Swat
north
Valley.
of somewhere near not exactly Swat Valley. I don't know where Chakdara is. Let me just check it out. So he came from that part of Pakistan into Tibet, and he sort of introduced religious, not religious, religious reforms for sure, but also social reforms. So he basically, got that whole practice sort of eliminated to a large extent. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's fascinating, right? I mean, all of this came from India, man. And now look where India is in the religion discourse.
Yeah, it's
It's very
pretty
strange.
shitty. Yeah, exactly, man. That's one of the things, right? Like the kind of chutias we have discussing this kind of stuff right now in this country. It's unbelievable to me. And how much can you have cultural amnesia? I mean, every once in a while,
Dude, I just checked out where Chakdara is. It's like so close to it's basically Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region.
that's literally
It's a
the
SWAT district.
yeah.
It's a SWAT district. So he came from SWAT, just imagine. Which is now, I don't know how it is right now, but I'm pretty sure it's still a hellhole.
Of course, it
It's
is a hellhole.
it's a Mogadishu of Pakistan still, right? In many ways, I'm
It's a
sure.
Mogadishu of this part of the world
I
in general. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
South Asia.
probably South Asia, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
imagine this guy went from there to Tibet, the entire plateau, and he basically reformed a bunch of shit there. So
These guys, yeah, I mean, these were not always hellholes, right? I mean, Khyber Pass has like its own rich
dude,
history, and yeah,
it's
and I
crazy.
was checking out this. I know somebody was doing a vlog on this the other day. I don't know who it was. Was it Vice or somebody else? Shuru Shelby from Vice or somebody else. These guys were trying to buy illegal handmade guns in the Swat Valley, like on the Khyber Pass, basically. And it was insane. It was just unbelievable. And like I mean, like they're making Kalakashinovs and American rifles basically in small workshops, like the kind of workshops you and I used to work in MBA engineering college, right? Like
Huh.
small workshops,
Yeah,
smaller than that stuff, right? Like people who have
where
no
we got
understanding.
the
If we got an
we
F,
got the projects.
yeah,
We got the projects also made there, right?
yeah.
All our projects.
Yeah.
Jesus,
So
that's a
that sort of
weird
stuff.
place in Thane.
It's a weird place. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, that was bad. So you got these people who are just making guns, and Shuru Shalvi is like the Americans have no idea what they're fucking with because they and like like when these guys want to when these people in the SWAT Valley when they want to go and check out if the gun is working properly and they want to do the aiming practice, they just go to the top of the house and they start shooting in the mountain. I was like, dude, there's like a whole market down there and nobody blinks an eye, right? Like nobody, no people just walk about
Yeah,
their business, having their breakfast and shit, and they're like four guys on the top and they're just shooting at the mountain range, like which is like a few kilometers away. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And that's what even like the guy from Vice is thinking. Like, how is this like normal for these people? And he's like, Americans have no idea what they're fucking with, right? Like, they're like, there's a whole,
so
it's a mad culture.
it's I don't know I don't know how to like react to that.
Yeah,
So
the the Pathans and the like, yeah, like
The
The crazy.
Pathans, Afridis, I think, are also Pathans, right? Or
Yeah,
they're like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah. I there was
Pathans
a
basically.
there's a church here in Bombay. It's called the Afghan Church, Kolaba.
Yes.
Right. I think it's made
Kolaba,
in the
yeah.
memory of the soldiers that died in the Afghan war, the British soldiers that died in the Afghan war. The funny thing is, pretty much everybody died in the Afghan war. Like, I don't think anybody
Yeah,
survived.
yeah.
They used to chop their dicks off and stuff them in their own mouths.
Yeah.
The Pathans would do that to the British soldiers. So like nobody survived, man, except Dr. Watson, who then went to Sherlock Holmes and and
Yeah.
became a friend.
He lost a leg though, at least in the show, right?
Yeah, but there's
I'm not
another
sure in the
Afghan
novels
war.
if he.
There's a
That's the
new
older
show,
Afghan.
the actual Afghan war. Like I think that's the actual origin story of Dr. Watson. That
So in
he
the
was part
novel
of
also, he was part of that Afghan war.
exactly. And in the show, Frank, like fortunately for them, another Afghan war took place just before the BBC did a rendition of
There
that.
were multiple Afghan wars.
There's always an Afghan war,
But
man.
yeah, man. But that's the thing, right? Like no, like you were saying, right? This level of discourse doesn't exist in India. No one really talks about this.
Just turn your news channel on. You'll see either get those channels. I'm not gonna take the names, but like they're either
You can
blabbering
take the
on the
names.
news. I can't
We
take the
anyway have
names.
no
I
hardly
don't
any
I
followers. Who's going to see this podcast anyway?
shit. So
अरे bro मतलब नाम लिया
बोला
अरे
हूँ
मतलब zero
influential
के
people.
zero
But
times
yeah,
यार मतलब.
there are these fuck all people who are basically sitting in the newsrooms and talking about things in a very different way. And then the guys who are running these spiritual channels where like there's like a very dull, stupid sort of a discourse where they say things like mutton nahi khane ka and chicken nahi khane ka and stuff
Yeah,
like that. And I'm like,
don't drink
boss,
alcohol and all that.
yeah,
I don't
like what
like
the
them.
fuck? Yeah, I'm like, how how freaking important do you want generation to be listening to you guys, man? Like, and yeah, that sort of discourse does not exist. I mean, it just does not. Where it's like it's a free for all. Like you say what you want, man. Let's see what you got. And yeah,
Those days are gone right now, and even if there is a discourse, is just not a very high level anymore. It's very strange, and like news channels. So I don't even count them as. I don't know why people still hold them to their word, but it's the worst time for
for
discourse or debate in India. I feel. I don't think there has ever been a lower level achieved. I think in Indian history. I
no,
really doubt
never,
it.
never, never, never.
I don't think this. I can. I think we can pretty much agree. I don't think at any given point in Indian history was discourse at such a level.
It
Even the
was
70s, 80s, there was at a pretty high level from whatever I have read. The kind of literature that was being like
people were writing
published.
letters to the editor and arguing
Yeah,
over that, right? And like, no matter how much of an idiot you were, you still had to have some sort of an understanding of the world for writing letters to the editor and for those letters to get published sometimes.
published. Yeah,
Yeah, now
but
the
now
idea
it is.
is some fucker
It's
comes to
pretty.
your YouTube page and is like, "Yeah, tu chute hai, to pata nahi kuch bhi." Like that's not a discourse.
Exactly.
You could have said the same thing better, like in 2 paragraphs, and it would have been nice, right?
Yeah, I could have probably pointed out there was maybe some factual errors in whatever I spoke about Buddhism. Maybe there's a difference of opinion, something like that. I mean, but it's not there. And even with the spiritual leaders, they have nothing to talk about apart from
The YouTube
like
channels
bullshit,
have
esoteric stuff.
yeah, the YouTube channels are
And
based on ideas like this dude burns this guy, this dude like totally owns this guy. I'm like, that's not the point to begin with. Like, if you're a
yeah,
fucking spiritual guru, the last thing you want to do is burn or own somebody. Imagine Buddha going around like, I own you, motherfucker. Like, I burn you. Like, dude, I
even
own
in
you.
Buddha's time, it would have been some metaphorical shit. It would have been some allegorical, metaphorical shit where in a metaphorical realm, this being metaphysically burnt, and through my debate, and then there's a full fucking painting made, and 800 years we are like, oh wow, this is an amazing print. What a great tanka made. And today, it's YouTube comment.
Yeah,
Burn.
the people are.
Kal liya
I
jaisa.
don't get it. People are like labeling their YouTube channels like that, right? And I don't get the fucking point of it. I'm like, you're a guru. Why would you name it's your own channel? Nobody's doing it for you. So your own channel, you're allowing people to say things like this dude owns 5 students. I'm like, you don't want to own students. Why would you want to own students? Like they're students for a reason, right? They're still learning. Like, what the fuck would you want
It's
to
very
own?
sounds very very wrong also.
Yeah.
Call up
Well, I mean,
Interpol and put their asses
I
on
used to
them.
look at those Ben Shapiro videos, and I was like, this dude keeps talking about being
Yeah.
civil and shit, and he's always talking about things like he owns 5 college students and gives a fitting reply to a socialist. I'm like, you're not supposed to, right? Like, this
Yeah.
is dumb shit. Like, why would you want to do that? So yeah, man, it's ridiculous actually.
So the thing is that the media which controls discourse is completely bought on like viewership, and so the level is pretty much crashed. And it's been low for like almost a decade now.
More than a
Okay,
decade, yeah, easily.
Bollywood is more than a decade, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think since 24/7 news probably came up, it's been deteriorating steadily.
Last
I
20
think
years, yeah.
NDTV sort of they had some segments, those segments are gone now. It's all prime time this, prime time that. It's bullshit. Okay, and from an art point of view, mainstream art point of view, I mean, we have nothing apart from Bollywood, and that's pretty much bankrupt right now. And the spiritual leaders who are supposed to lead us to salvation, they only give us diluted versions of yoga or some bullshit esoteric stuff like inner this and inner that, and it's just some. And people also ask stupid questions like I broke up with my
मेरे
boyfriend,
बेटे
I'm
को बेटी
heartbroken, how do
पैदा
I
नहीं
get
हो
up?
रही है. हाँ, मेरे बेटे को बेटा नहीं हो रहा है.
Yeah, and
What to
then
do? And the
and
fucker
there'll
will
be
be
some
like,
stupid answer.
yeah, tell him to fuck on Thursday.
Yeah, that's or just call me next time if it doesn't work. It's called Neo. It's still there. So, but it's just I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird.
Fucking retarded, yeah. Fuck.
That was a good conversation.
Yeah.
Did
You
you
think we
record?
should? Yeah, we recorded. Yeah, we are recording. We're still recording. I think, but we should be done. I don't think anybody wants to hear us talk that much.
Yeah, anymore. But it was interesting. This culture of violence that came from. So we talked about movies, pop culture in America, sex and violence, culture of violence, swung back to India. Then we moved out again to Liberia, came back to India again, talked about like cults propagating violence, and then how we are a culture of violence, and then we talked about Buddhism. Jesus.
Yeah, and the uselessness of the news channels
And
and
then of
such.
course,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a favorite
Yeah.
topic anyway.
Yeah. Should we call it a day?
We should call it a day, I think.
Yeah. And I'm gonna hit the off button. Thank
Fuck,
you,
it was
ladies.
good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. And yeah, that's it from us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Bye bye.